this is Carden Calder, the Blue Chip Communication Managing Director and Founder, and today we're here to talk to you about our 7th in a series of videos addressing how to stop a perceptual crisis in financial services. Today we want to talk to you about the small target strategy. Carden, what's a small target strategy?
Also known as the chairman's favourite strategy. That's a little probably unfair of me, but for many boards this is their most attractive option. It's to say absolutely nothing or minimise any public comment. It's also a forced strategy where there are legal proceedings underway or where there are remaining significant risks inside the organisation that you simply can't flag or talk about publicly.
So this is the part of the video where we usually give examples and talk about case studies, which we're not going to do this time because it's not really appropriate.
Right. The work that we do in this space is almost always by definition highly confidential and quite sensitive. What I think we can talk about is the sorts of cases where this strategy works well or where it's forced. It's an essential strategy. And one of those would be an example where, for example, there's been a misconduct of some sort. It might be fraud, it might be unacceptable conduct, it might be trading issues of some sort. We've dealt with insider trading, we've dealt with large-scale corporate fraud, we've dealt with the usual credit card misuse kinds of, all things that fall under the heading of conduct risk. One reason you use this strategy is that there are going to be legal proceedings or may well be. Another reason you use it is that there may be system vulnerabilities exposed by the issue itself. So, for example, in the case of cybersecurity, if that's a live and running issue, you might have privacy law obligations to report a breach, but you don't want to talk too much about what's happened and the mechanics of it in case it encourages further breaches. Similarly with many of the cases we've dealt with where there's misconduct or criminal conduct, you never want to talk about the mechanics of the criminal conduct because it might make possible more of the same, or it might expose issues in terms of the security or the capability of the internal risk framework or system vulnerabilities. So there are lots of good reasons not to talk too much about some of the major issues as long as you're giving necessary and sufficient information about what's gone on.
That's absolutely true. And I think the other thing is you're able to, often when you're in the middle of a media storm, it can feel as though that storm you're always going to be in the centre of it. And that's just simply not the case. There's barely a story that doesn't pass. They all do. So I think it's really important if you're able to implement small target to put off the press. So they go and chase another element of the story, they go and chase another organisation or the regulator or whatever it is. If you can satisfy them that that's all you're going to say and it's going to be minimal, they will probably report that. That's boring, so they're going to go and chase a different aspect of it, in my experience.
Right, and we often refer to that as depriving a fire of oxygen. Without any further input, these fires will sometimes just die down. The tricky bit is deciding when that's true and when that's not true, and you can get lucky or unlucky because what you've just talked about is on a big news day, you've got plenty of other things to do as a journalist. So if this is not right up there in your top 3, it's actually a pretty good day to sort of put the trash out, make your comment and move on.
Absolutely.
Small target.
Friday afternoon strategy, yes.
Yeah.
So what are some of the steps that you need to effectively implement this strategy?
Right. So I think you need to identify the key players. You really need a thorough understanding of key stakeholders' position on various issues and to understand your role in the broader tableau or narrative that's going to be played out. So that would be one key thing. Another would be to fight where you can win. There's no point raising questions that you can't answer in public, but there is a point making clear, succinct and strong statements about the issues where you have conviction in your position, you believe that you'll be judged well as opposed to harshly for what you're doing, and where ideally another critical success factor is that you can actually cap out the likelihood of you making any further commentary. And that might be because you say, look, there are investigations underway, we're not making any further comment until those are concluded. Or it might be that you say there are matters of commercial confidentiality and things that have a potential impact for individuals, therefore we won't be making any other comment. It might be that, for example, around the exit of a key executive, you say, look, we respect their privacy and we won't be discussing this further in public. But whatever it is, it needs to give you a really clear and solid bookend that enables you to stop talking about the issue.
In terms of critical success factors, putting a floor onto having to answer anything else from the press is one of those. What else would you consider to be critical in the success of this strategy?
Yeah, well, I think by definition it's a reactive strategy, not a proactive one. Sometimes it can be used proactively, but most likely if you want to present a small target, you don't go out there talking about the issue, you wait until you're asked.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing would be that it's just worth playing that devil's advocate role internally and asking yourself, what else can go wrong? What are the questions that a skeptic would have in their mind that they might not yet have asked? Do we need to answer some of those or be aware that we might be asked? And I think also don't be very careful not to make any statements that might become untrue. You know, if it's foreseeable that something else can go wrong, it may well, and so we might as well just preclude that by thinking through what else might go wrong, and let's not make statements such as we don't expect any further redundancies, or statements such as there's no misconduct, you know, or statements such as we don't expect regulator action. If you're going to make a statement like that, you need to be more than certain that it's going to hold up under almost any eventuality in the future. Those sorts of absolutes can be quite dangerous. So I think that wraps us up. I would suggest to you that, like many of the other sort of crisis communication strategies we've talked about, we've written a guide to how to use this. It's a very simple how-to. It talks about the do's and don'ts, and it gives you a stepped process if you'd like to learn more about it. You can find that by looking at the right-hand side of your screen right now. There should be a spot where you can pop your email address in. We'll send you the downloadable content. Please, if you think it's a useful tool, share it with others. We'd love you to send on the URL for this video as well. And please give us any feedback. We are open to hearing about other topics you'd like to know about, and we'd like to know if there are things you feel we left out of this. There are many very, very capable corporate affairs practitioners and leaders out there who look at our content and who give us useful feedback about it. We really welcome that. It helps us improve the quality of what we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.